Good morning. Had a fun day yesterday. Fun. Doing a bunch of surface mount soldering. I finished up some code that makes the reporting process that I was getting a little bogged down in, makes that process much simpler and much easier to hand off to someone else. Much like the original bit of reporting helper code, all it is some simple logic, some inputs, and then it applies simple logic to it and preps your clipboard and kicks off files, the appropriate file. So it just makes and this is the object, is to take all the thinking out of it. This is what I was talking about in the oil change. Yeah, in the oil change video. So this is kind of an extension of that. There was still a part that was somewhat complicated that I was doing myself, and just applying enough logic to it, you can figure out, you can figure out like 90% of it, and the remaining 10%, we'll deal with that when it comes up. That kind of stuff happens like twice a year, maybe. So not a huge deal. But it did free me up to work on some of these other projects. And one of those was building a bunch of cards for our robot controller. So I had done a little bit of surface mount work before, but not for a while. So this was a new opportunity to really spend some time doing it. And I had a nice set of work in front of me, and kind of figured out the best workflow for it, so that there's minimal travel time, and things are moving back and forth across the station, and I'm applying the same process. Even just picking parts out of, this is little tiny parts. It's smaller than a grain of rice. So it's like a 10th, so maybe like a 50th of the size of a grain of rice. So you have to pick the parts and then put them on the cards, and you have to solder the pads. So there's this like prep solder first. Do I prep solder all 4 cards or all 5 cards, and then switch to placement, or do I prep solder and place? Like, what's the best orientation of the cards so that I don't have to prep solder this way and then rotate the card, and then prep solder and then rotate it back and then prep solder. So getting good at, pad, move, pad, flip, pad, and set it aside. And maintain the same card orientation so all the cards are in the same direction when they're done. Doing something like that, and then figuring out where the parts can be so that you don't lose them, and you can pick them easily. It was a fun exercise, but I wound up getting all the cards done in that day. I did it for like 7 hours without a break, and I was just like, oh, it's almost time to go. Hey, I can finish in time. So there's a few parts we didn't have that I wasn't able to place. There's like, sets of 32 LEDs that we didn't have resistors for, so I couldn't place those, and that would have been I don't know. I placed a set of them. I could probably place more LEDs, but either way, I got them as done as I could get them. And it was, anytime I have that like heavy focus work where you're just intently focused on one particular thing without any distractions, it's fantastic. It's great. It's therapeutic is what it is. And then the bonus of, at the end of the day, being able to oh man, I kind of want to see. There's the geese are mating. I can't see. The geese are mating, and they have goslings, which is the only time geese are cute. Every time after that, they're just hell beasts. But there was a jogger running, and there were the geese and their goslings pretty much in the middle of the sidewalk, and I wanted to see what was going to happen, but I missed my chance. I'll just imagine that they attacked him, rent the flesh from his bones, and he's a bleached skeleton by now. I mean, it's been seconds. That's all it takes. Those geese, they'll get you. So it was a lot of fun, and it was good practice. And it's all, it was all fine motor control, and I didn't burn myself with the soldering iron, which is good because I'm doing a lot of this and then flipping hands to do something and then flipping hands back, and there was a lot of handling of the soldering iron and a lot of movement around the soldering iron, which is usually when I get burned, but I did not get burned this time, so go me. And that can also be attributed to the process. It's like, if things aren't where they should be and you have to break the process, well, all your mechanical memory, your muscle memory of, soldering iron like this when I do that, go ahead and just place it, or can I hold it while I do these things? That all goes out the window. So it's weird. But like I said, it went really well, and it makes me want to surface mount more. Oh, plus at the end of the day, instead of having a series of ones and zeros that did what I wanted it to do, I had like physical product. I had produce. I had cards. These robot cards, all built with all their tiny parts placed. So it was good. It's always a good day when you get to work with your hands, and you have, especially when you're a programmer, when you have like physical product completed at the end of the day. I can look at the cards and say, I built these today. And much like I can look at my I can look at my garden and say, yeah, I worked on this garden today. The garden is, I tilled up the soil for this garden. I have accomplished garden. And that isn't always the case with coding, because there's always this delayed gratification, and the knowledge that things are never quite done, never completely done. Those cards are as done as they're going to be. But when you work on code, you're like, well, this works. I guess there's very few pieces of code I've ever written to completion and said, this is done. This is quality code that I will use and not look back at and say, ugh, it's not peak performance, but I guess I can't say that there's not stuff that I use, utilities that I use, even if the code isn't that great. I guess it's like the enjoyment you get out of it is spread out over the period of your use of that tool. I don't know. I did play around with, so I have this kind of a workflow thing. Like, I don't like that I have to open a browser in order to view YouTube. So I've been looking at different methods of viewing in the screen, or viewing outside of YouTube, and that leads me to YouTube-DL and MPV, Mike Papa Victor. Victor. Yeah, that's right. Huh. It is Mike. Huh. Okay, that's weird. Never mind. Which allows me to play YouTube videos in my, basically from a shell prompt, from a command prompt. In a GUI environment, obviously, we're watching videos, but whatever. You could probably stream the audio. That'd be an interesting set. Anyways, I have... I also try to stay away from the YouTube recommendations, because that's a rabbit hole that I don't need to go down unless I intend on spending a lot of time on it, because it's very easy to get very distracted. So having some of these email notifications sent to me, it's a lot easier to get an email and say, oh, Video Game Donkey uploaded a new video, and then have the URL, and then just right-click it, copy the link, and then open it in MPV. Open a new terminal, and then open it and paste it into an MPV link, and view it there. But what would be a lot better is if we didn't do that. If we just did, we just passed the URL directly to something that would play it in MPV. So, Mutt is mature, not super featured, and I don't think it's getting any updates. Apparently, a lot of people don't use Mutt. I don't know why you would want to do anything other than read your email in the terminal. Like, you get zero benefit from other... Never mind. Okay, whatever. Anyways, I'm reading... So, my workflow is I'm in my email looking at the, video game donkey uploaded a new video. And there's the link. And I have to reach for the mouse and move the mouse over and right-click and click on email or copy link and then open a new terminal session and then type in MPV and then space and then paste. Which is Control-Shift-V, which is basically like three keystrokes. So, and then it opens up. So I want to reduce that. And like I said, Mutt is mature, but not super full-featured. So I kind of had to poke around and figure out what I needed. And I also didn't want to write too much for it because, Linux is made to do this stuff. So the quick and hacky way of doing it was to make figure out how to get the URL out of that HTML email, which is, it would probably be better to run it through a links dump, actually. But it doesn't matter. So it pipes through a couple grep commands, because at that point I was like, match this and this, and I couldn't remember the syntax for and I was like, I don't care. So I just piped it through one search, and then I piped that search through a more refining search with another grep. And then I had a line that had the YouTube link in it. But it has this I don't know what it is. I think it's like some kind of poisoning that's in there, because it intentionally adds weird characters into the URL. And I don't know what they're there for. Or if it's like an artifact of some other kind of fancy thing they're trying to do. But I used cut, or piped that through the tool cut to cut the first section, remove that middle section, or ignore that middle section, and then append the rest of the section so that I got the full URL. And then you put that inside, for bash, it's like inside parentheses, and then $1 in front of that, and then put the whole thing inside a double quote. And then you'll get the output of that as part of a bash command. And then you put MPV in front of it. So I'm taking the output, or taking the contents of the email, I'm piping it through grep a couple times to narrow it down to one line. I'm running it through cut to cut out only just the URL, and then that whole bit is what is appended. That whole bit is what's coming after MPV. So I type MPV space, and then that command runs, and it outputs the URL. So that alone is easy to write, but I would rather it be a nice little handy executable shell. So you dump that into a file, and then head it with hashbang whack, or hashbang slash what is it, user bin bash, and it recognizes it as a bash script, and then give it a name that's easy to remember, called it MPVer. And now when I'm in that email, if there is a YouTube link inside that email, that's the first one that pulls up, I type pipe MPVER and hit enter, and up comes MPV with that link. It finds the link and opens it up. What would be really cool is to figure out what the link is, and then you can follow links. Yeah, that was the problem. Mutt will let you follow links, URLs that are in the email, but it opens it in whatever browser you want, and I was not able to find out where it chooses what program it uses to open these files, or to open the links. So that's kind of weird. I'm trying to run the Pocky Pi a little bit, so it's we'll see how it goes today. This does have an I2C interface broken out on the Hyperpixel, and there is some room down here. I do have a BlackBerry keyboard I2C breakout interface on its way from Tindy, so that'll be You know, will it fit? It'll probably be a bit wider, but you know, this whole thing could be add a little bit more bezel so that it'll fit. But the form factor otherwise is pretty nice. So we'll see how it runs, and just see if I can reincorporate this into my workflow. So that's it.